really get going. I know lots of you have got accounts, but are still learning the system. So Tim and Dan have kindly volunteered today, or offered today their time to help us go through some of the key functions of the Land App to try and get everyone up and running so we can really use the system to work with our groups and between our groups. So that's why we're here today. There's a really good agenda of some key operations on the Land App, which Tim and Dan can run through. So I think without any further ado, I'll pass over to both Tim and Dan to give us the detailed information. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Bruce. And good morning, everybody. So yeah, I'll just quickly introduce myself for those who don't know me. So yeah, my name is Tim Hopkin. I set up the Land App about 4 years ago. It's a result really of our own frustration on our family farm, which is where I am right now. Basically, we need to transform the farm to best practice. Otherwise, it's as simple as we're going to have to sell it. And I couldn't believe that there wasn't a tool out there in the market that would help me understand the context of the farm and design projects and schemes with advisors and consultants. And was very fortunate to be supported by Ordnance Survey and be on their first ever innovation program, which is where the Land App was born. And then we've grown up over the last 4 years, and actually we're in a really lovely position now. We're working with a lot of the facilitation funds, part of 5 ELMS trials and tests, and actually sort of on a commercial front, Strutt and Parker are using the Land App across their entire rural division. So yeah, we are growing and growing, and our real emphasis and focus is really supporting this transition of land management towards best practice. And actually, just quickly before I'm gonna hand over to Dan in a second, just to introduce himself. But just quickly, Bruce just asked me to let you know that we're also running a webinar series on the transformation of the future of land management. We had our second session yesterday. We had 330 people attend it, and it's every Thursday at 4:30. So if anyone's interested, I'm going to send through a link, so you guys are welcome to register and be part of the conversation. So I thought I'd mention that before I forget. So yeah, so that basically is me. If anyone wants to find out anything more about sort of what we're up to as well, of course, you're welcome to get in contact with me directly. But I'm going to hand over to Dan to introduce himself, and then we'll start the demonstration.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tim. So I'm Dan Gira. I'm from the Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group, Southwest, and we have just finished the first phase of our ELMS trial, which started in September of last year. And what we've been trying to do within our ELMS trial is help develop the Land App to try and make that coordinated action that Tim was just talking about. So we've been building up a picture about the farmed environment through a baseline mapping process, which hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit of a taster of today, so we can generate these catchment scale habitat maps to try and make some more informed decisions on the ground. So the Land App's really provided us with that tool for coordinated action, especially in a time like this, when we can't actually go to all these farms. It's been really, really useful to keep in touch with our farmers, but also it allows the farmer to stay in control of their data. And hopefully out of today, you'll see that the data inputting is easy. And once you've got it up, the year on year confirm and amend will just be slight changes. And because at the moment, the current system is paper maps, constantly redoing it. And as an agent myself, it is really quite repetitive and frustrating. But what the Land App does is it allows you just to build on the work you did last year and build on that work again and again. So hopefully today we'll be able to cover a bit on basic payment, a bit on countryside stewardship, and then how that rolls into ELMS in terms of the UK habitat mapping. But yeah, any questions, please fire them into the chat, and I'm sure at the end of the session, my email will get shared as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. Great. Well, without any further ado, I will share my screen. And Dan, just let me know that you can see my screen.
Yeah, that's all good. I can see it.
Okay, brilliant. Fantastic. Great. Well, what we thought we'd do today, everybody, is sort of really demonstrate how a landowner and sort of facilitator can work together to produce these maps through the collaboration function in the Land App. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to set up the map and upload RPA field boundaries. I'm then going to share the map with Dan, and then we're going to switch screens, and Dan is going to show you on his account, after he's received the link, how he can then go ahead and do the mapping. He'll then share it back with me. I'll upload some georeference photos so you can really see the farmer-advisor relationship. And then what I plan to do at the end is actually share that map with all of you, so you're all able to see it on your Land App accounts and really sort of see this collaboration function in process. So what I'll do is I'm just going to create, so firstly, actually, just for those who might not know the Land App, so essentially, this is the dashboard, which is where you start when you come in and create an account. So essentially, all of the farm maps or all the individual maps are here in the dashboard. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to set up a new map. So I'm going to call it Norney Farm, which is the name of our farm, and I'm going to call it Southern Facilitators, although I do know that we've got facilitators from more than the south. So hello, everyone else. I'm going to create this empty map. And just as a bit of context, just so you guys can understand sort of how it's laid out and how we've put it together, is essentially, so we're partners with Ordnance Survey, so you have full access to OS data by default. Then here in the boundary section in the top left, we've got essentially where the authoritative data sits. So this is the land registry data and the RPA field boundaries for the holding sits here, because really you don't want to edit that data, because you'd have to update sort of land registry or RPA through FR1s or RLE1s before that data gets changed. So essentially this is the authoritative data for the holding. But all of this information can get copied down into the project section, which is where you can then start to do BPS, countryside stewardship, UK habitat mapping, diversification planning, uploading georeference photos, utilities, infrastructure, landscape scale plans. All of the drawing happens here. And the way it works in the Land app is that everything is built in projects, and you'll see why that becomes useful. Not only does it streamline workflows, but allows you to produce tables and reports really quickly and easily. So I'll show you that as we go through. Otherwise, we have these drawing features, so adding features, annotating, editing, modifying, and snapping to line. And you'll notice kind of how simple this is. And really, just to reiterate, the Land app has been designed to support decision makers to make well-informed decisions on land. So as Dan will probably allude to, we've tried to create a lot of simplicity in the way that the software works. There's not huge complexity that you'd find with GIS. It really is designed to support the 90% of land managers to make well-informed decisions. That's really what we need. The other thing, we've got a series of different base maps, so different Ordnance Survey base maps or aerial imagery. If you want to print for free, so I should say that the OS data and the aerial imagery does have a fee associated to the print, but you can print using OpenStreetMap for free. And you can even do that up to A0, so I will show you a bit of that. Then map layers, we've got a whole series of different map layers, things like national parks, NVZs, triple SIs, public rights of way, listed buildings. So let's just turn on a couple of those so you can see that. Different data layers are also visible at different zoom levels. So just be aware that you can't see footpaths when you're all the way zoomed out. You can see them as you zoom in, so just worth being aware of that. As I mentioned, the software is collaborative, so you can share the maps with anyone and they can create an account for free. And we're going to use this in a second with Dan. You can print land reg compliant plans, and behind the scenes, we've got a whole swathe of help guidance that you can access. If there's anything missing, please let us know, and we'll keep on adding to that. So you've constantly got a full library of different things that you can sort of search through. And we've also got in-app chat. So you can actually register for the webinars here, the ones I mentioned earlier, and you can search for articles and you can chat with us. So there's just full context of how the software is laid out. But getting into it, I'm going to first run through the process of uploading my RPA field boundaries and then sharing the map back with Dan, and then Dan's going to take it from there. So to upload RPA field boundaries into the software, all you need to do is click on Import from Rural Payments Agency. This you really need to do in Google Chrome. So if you don't use Google Chrome, we would definitely suggest using that, and you can just install it using the link there. If you do use Google Chrome, come through into the Chrome Web Store if you haven't done so already. And I've obviously already installed the Chrome extension, but I'll just remove that, add it back in. So this Chrome extension essentially allows you to import the RPA field boundaries, and you'll see how that works just in a second. And you only need to do that once. So just remember, second one, Chrome Store, add the Chrome extension, and you only need to do that once. After that's been done, you can click on RPA. I should also say this is being recorded, so we will send the video out afterwards, so don't feel like you need to remember everything or take notes. So yeah, just so you know, I'm going to sign in with my customer reference number into the RPA. It will be worth saying actually that we haven't told many people this, but we are actually working on a function right now with the Rural Payments Agency, which will actually allow you to import RPA field boundaries quite a bit easier. And that should be live in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So just so you know. Anyway, I'm going to come through into Norney Farm Partnership, and I'm going to just be in the business overview. So again, if you don't have access to your farmer's accounts, they can do what I'm doing as the farmer. They can upload their RPA field boundaries into the land app. And the way they do that is click on the Chrome extension, collect land covers with hedges. You can see that file's downloaded out in the bottom left there. Just going to close this, drag the file straight into the map window, let go, click boundary. Hey presto, there it is, all the data imported, contained and organized under land parcels. And then all I need to do to get the ball rolling before I hand over to Dan is click create project. Basic payment scheme is now visible because we've got the RPA data. And hey presto, it copies everything across. And now I'm going to share this map with Dan. So I've got Dan's email saved here. And I'm going to add a collaborator, add Dan, paste, give Dan editor access, add viewer, click done, and I am going to stop sharing. Over to you, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I'm just waiting for my email to come through, which it has done, and I will share my screen with you now. So hopefully you will be able to see my screen, and just for access as well, you can see that I've just received this email from the land app, and it simply just gives me a direct link into the mapping program, which I click, and then automatically it gives me the map that was just shared with me. I'm just going to minimize that on the side. And as Tim says, we're using this to collaborate with farmers across the catchment as best we can. So the basic payment scheme project that Tim has just created automatically downloads the land cover data which is associated to the farm according to the Rural Payment Agency. So at Nordy Farm here presently, most of it's down in permanent grassland, but I know that they've also got a triple SI coming down this southeast corner as well. But what I'm going to do is just make an arbitrary farm for today. So it's not all going to be permanent pasture, but that's just for the demonstration purposes. So within this basic payment scheme, you can start building up a picture about what's on the land using the basic payment template. So built into Land App, depending on which project you're creating, you have access to the different basic payment codes or the different template codes that are built within the background. So for example, if this wasn't a permanent grassland and this was actually a temporary grassland, you could assign that temporary grassland to that field quite simply. And then again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one field temporary grassland, and I'm going to pretend this field down in the south is also an arable as well. So we've got a bit of diversity amongst these farms. So I can really quickly and easily assign those different fields, different options. Alongside that, I can also add field names, the field IDs, areas, etc. With a multifunction tool. And included in basic payment as well, you can start building up pictures of where your tracks may be or your ineligible features. So I'm going to build up a couple of those now, and then what you'll see is what features I draw on the map now will be carried over to the next projects that I'm going to create, which is going to be a countryside stewardship project. So say for example, down the side of this temporary grassland field, it's not actually this big because I've got a track going down just the left-hand side. The Land App have a couple of functions, one of which is the buffer function. And I'm just going to quickly show you how simple it is for me to add a track just following one edge of the field. To do that, we need to add on that snap to line function that Tim just mentioned before, which is this one at the top. And then there's a couple of ways you can do it, but definitely the quickest way is if you add a feature, as I'm doing here, and under the common boundaries, you basically have all the 5 different geometry shapes that you can add onto a project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this line function because I'm adding a buffer. By holding the letter S, you can see that my mouse automatically gets attracted like a magnet to the side of the lines. And what that does is it allows me to keep my lines really neat and tidy. So the first click I'm going to do is start drawing that line, and then I'm actually not clicking again. And what you can see, because I'm holding the letter S, is that line is automatically being snapped to the boundary which I'm trying to buffer. Okay, and then just to finish, I've double clicked. And by the time that finishes, you can see I've got this red line going down the side of the west of this field, this temporary grass field. And what I can do now is add a buffer to that line. And what that allows me to do is any complex line, regardless of how many vertices, so how many points are along that edge, I can simply add a buffer. Just to let you know, there's 2 options for a buffer. You can either have it side 1, which is the left-hand side of what you've drawn. So I've drawn from top to bottom, so the left-hand side is actually on the right, or side 2, which is the converse side, which is on the right-hand side. And you can also dictate how wide that strip is. So say, for example, I'm having a 10-meter track going down the side of this field. I add 10 meters and I round the corners. That basically just smoothens off any edge. It's not too noticeable because this field edge is actually quite smooth, but when you're going down the long side of a meandering river, you'll really notice how rounding corners actually really helps make a more natural feel to the buffer. And you also have this subtract function. And what this subtract function does, it just minuses the area of this polygon from the field boundary. So you can see this field currently is 13.97. By adding the subtract and clicking OK, automatically the land app has minus that area from the field. So now it's gone down by the area of this buffer. And I can now assign this track, ooh, he says confidently, I can now assign this track a different function. So this is an ineligible feature. Ineligible area, jobs are good. And so what I've done is I've built up a picture of where the track is, and I still have my agricultural area, which is here. And you can do that for all the different fields. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to add many more features like that. So I've started building a picture of the basic payment project. And what we've done within our ELMS trial is do all of that. So input where all your tracks may be. If you've got areas of scrub, you can add that, doing the same function, but it may not be adding a linear feature like I've just done. It may be adding something, for example, a lapwing plot or a scrub area, which is actually a polygon in the middle of the field. So you can do that. And by duplicating this project, so instead of creating a project which uses the boundary layer, which is this layer at the top from land cover with hedges, and instead I can click these 3 dots next to basic payment scheme, duplicate that project into a countryside stewardship project, and that will then use the template of the map I've just drawn. So that's being carried over, and you can see the geometry of that track that I drew has now been brought over to my countryside stewardship project. So this is actually called basic payment. Let me just rename that for clarity. It's just a CS project. And now the only difference between that is that the availability of the template is now no longer basic payment. But when I want to assign a use, I now have a list of all the different countryside stewardship options that may be in. So for this temporary grass, I might be instead next year want to put it into a legume fallow, which is really easy. I can just search for that. You can either search for the keyword, so like I did fallow, or if you know the codes, you can search for your AB15s, etc. So I've now assigned this field that option. However, the area is correct because I've minused off that illegible feature. So the whole field wasn't going to go into the legume rich fallow because I did have that track that wasn't initially mapped. And same again, the codes are the codes are added on to the field parcel as shown. And I'm just going to add a couple more features, and then I'm going to show you a couple more really nifty functions that are part of the land app. So say, for example, this arable field we had down here, I'm not putting any option in the whole field, but what I am going to do is I'm going to put a lapwing plot in the middle. And the same again, I'm using draw a shape function. I'm going to draw my lapwing plot and finish drawing. So I have a polygon, which is 0.21 hectares, resting on top of a larger field. But then again, once I'm happy with where it is, and remember you have those functions to move that lapwing plot wherever you want. Once you're happy with where that's going to go, you can then select the plot, click edit at the top here, and just subtract that function. So we're not adding a buffer to the lapwing plot, we're just using the subtract function to minus the area of that lapwing plot from the rest of the field. By hitting OK, once again, it's punched a hole of that lapwing plot through the field behind it, which is a really, really cool function. Actually, you'll find a lot of GIS software that I use don't actually currently allow you to do that. And the simplicity of that has really allowed our farmers and our landowners who are part of our ELMS trial build up a picture of their land really quite quickly. And then same again, you just assign that plot with an option. And just a couple of other functions that I quickly want to show you before I get on to passing you back to Tim, is you can buffer really quickly a whole field. So say, for example, this field, I wanted to put a 12-meter buffer all the way around the outside. I've just right-clicked, chose the buffer setting, once again, round the corners, and you'll notice just it really simplified some of these edges, and then subtract again. And voila, what we've got is we've got that really neat buffer that's gone all the way around, and you can assign that your options. So let's put in a flower rich margin around the side, and you can put the codes on as well. So if you're printing, having a nice code sat on the map really helps with clarity. And then just one last thing to mention within the stewardship project is when you've assigned an option to a field, so I've assigned this AB8 to this polygon around the outside, the land app has the guidance built in. So the payment The payment rate is here, so you're getting £539 per hectare, but also you can click on this AB8 link, which takes me directly to the .gov website about the option, so the prescriptions, what's expected. So it may be reminding about what you've currently got on the ground, or whether you're making a proposed project for a client or making a proposed project for yourself. This transparency really helps, because getting to know the options is really important if you're going to build a good project. And what we're trying to do at FWAG is we suggest options, but it's really about having the farmer or the lander understand those options, how it's going to impact the business. So this type of transparency is really, really helping. And just finally, what I'm going to do is the final, I suppose, stick in our ELMS project is trying to create a map that everyone has, because as you'll notice that some farmers are in mid-tier and higher tier, which is this countryside stewardship, but others are in the old environmental stewardship, so HLS, ELS and OELS, for example. So they can map in exactly the same format as I'm doing here. But the only difference is they're speaking a different language. So what we're doing within our ELMS trial is we've explored something called the UK Habitat Mapping Classification, which is a one-size-fits-all map, which covers the whole of the United Kingdom, and it covers every habitat. And it's split all the UK into 9 distinct habitats, which I'll quickly show you now, which are grassland, cropland, woodland, wetland, and urban environments. And what that allows us to do is it maps everyone in the same language. So this currently hasn't been fully taken up by DEFRA. We're still working in countryside stewardship terms and BPS terms, but what we're hoping in the future when ELMS rolls around is we can all start using the same mapping system, so we can fit in phase ones. So if your farms have ever had a phase 1 or an MVC map, they all translate directly into a UK habitat map. So I've built up a picture about what's happening on the ground through countryside stewardship. So I've got my lapwing plot resting in the middle of this field, and I've got my my wildflower margins around this one, and also this one's in a legume fallow, and I've also got this track coming down the side. Currently, in the land app, what it does, it doesn't carry over much information other than the geometry. We've currently got a translation in our ArcGIS account, which automatically translates like this, which we've passed over to the land app. So hopefully soon, and I know they're really busy meeting a load of other things, but as soon as what we can do is translate those codes directly into UK HabMap, all of these options are going to be assigned the correct term. So for example, this one is a sealed track, so a developed land, which is the code U for urban, and then 1B is just a specific type of urban. And this lapwing plot, for example, is going to be a arable margin or a game bird. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's just call it an arable margin, which is basically just giving it a C, which is the cropland. So a C, which is the cropland, and then 1 is the type of cropland it's involved in. So for example, if this one is a cereal crop that's got a lapwing plot in the middle, I'm just going to turn these codes off as well because it's quite messy. Just going to turn those off like that. And what you'll notice now is I've got that lapwing plot with its area inside a field of our cereal crop. But what we can do is automatically translate all of these. So we are working in our ELMS trial to make this bit non-essential, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm just adding the codes for a UK habitat map. And what we can do then is we've got a really, really nice idea and really fine detail, more fine detail than any habitat maps currently generated, that is being generated by the landowner themselves. So they're in control of the data and they're understanding how this all works. They then each year update whether the habitats have moved. So maybe the lapwing plot next year is moving over to this side. So you can move that just as I did with the modification tool. Or maybe you've added a new buffer, or you've changed the complete land management of a certain parcel. That can be added, confirmed and amended each year. And what we're envisaging is that each year you submit an annual UK habitat map in this form, which is a GIS data set. You can export these really simply, and they can go into a wider database. Because as a facilitator, and I hope Jenny Phelps is in the call in a moment, hopefully you'll be able to give us a nice conclusion about how powerful this type of data is. But as a facilitation group, you can all submit your land management and your little plan. So you're looking after your little bit of the jigsaw. But when it's fed into a wider group, you can really get a powerful data set, so you can share how your land's being managed and also see how it's being managed over the other side of the hedge. So for example, hopefully you can see another PDF. Please, Tim, say if you can't. I'm showing one of the estates we're working of. So this is 11 farmers all working around Fairford, but we've shared their habitat maps between them. So when they're coming up, say for example, this farm in the middle is coming up with a new stewardship or wants to go into elms, they can see what's happening over the hedge. And until now, that's been really difficult to coordinate, but the tools like the Land app have really helped us look at the land, just looking after your little bit of the parcel, which is you submitting your data set in this form, passing it over. So as a facilitation group or as a cluster or whatever farmer group you want to call, you can really understand how your land fits into the wider context. So once you've got this and you've got access to all these different data sets in the background, you've really got some nice information that allows you to make those informed decisions on the ground about your natural capital, how you can join up on a landscape scale, and how that's going to fit into developing and achieving some of these goals that the government have set out. So farmland are being equipped with these tools that really allows them to be in charge of what they're providing on the ground. Hopefully that was enough, Tim, but I'm happy to go over some more, but if not, I will pass you back over.
Brilliant, Dan, thank you. That was very, very concise. Perfect. And I should say, so obviously everyone's on mute at the moment, but as Dan said, if anyone's got any questions, please do just put them into the chat function, and Dan will do everything he can to answer, and we'll try and do a Q&A session at the end, and people can unmute their microphones. What I wanted to quickly demonstrate next, let me just quickly open up the map again on my side and share my screen. So, oh, not that map. Oh, let's get back into it. Here we are. So, so I set the map up as you saw, shared it across with Dan, and here's all the work that Dan's done. Are you editing it now, Dan? I just saw a field change.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a couple of things while you're still talking, just to keep it clean.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the objective of this collaboration function. So instead of mapping always being sort of printing out PDFs and sending them across, the point with this is you can work together in real time to create these maps really quickly and easily. And you can see in this, we're only 25 minutes in, sort of 20 minutes of mapping, and already the farm has been mapped, and we're both sat at home. So the real point of everything we're trying to achieve is to support this transition of land management in the easiest, most effective way possible. And we really see that this is a prerequisite to ELMS, although of course the Land app really started prior to ELMS even being a consideration. So yeah, so that's really our objective. And something Bruce wanted me to mention to you, which he's experienced from playing on it himself, is that you really can't break the Land app. So just come in, feel free to play. It's entirely free to have an account, upload data, share, draw, do as much as you want. And we're here to support you as well. So please don't feel nervous of coming in and having a click around yourself, because we really are here to help you make the most out of it. Having fun, Dan?
Yeah, there we are. Your estate report should be a bit more interesting now.
Well, actually, good point. Yeah, so a couple of things actually I will touch on before I upload georeference photos. So all the mapping that Dan's just done, and I sort of mentioned it right at the beginning, is as everything is being built in these project templates, what's happening, so just to go back as to what we did, so we obviously uploaded the RPA data, Dan created the BPS, then created the countryside stewardship, and then the UK habitat classification. And so not only was Dan obviously drawing up the map and using the editing tools, but actually behind the scenes in the table view, the RPA, sort of a BPS table view, was being generated in real time as Dan was doing the mapping. So let's see, there was temporary grassland I just saw that Dan put in. Where are we? Temporary grassland, there we go. So here are some of the features: ineligible areas for things, the arable, the buckwheat cropping. So all of this automatically gets created, and as you can see, it's formatted in the parcel numbers, and all of this can be exported into Excel. So that's one thing. So as you're doing the mapping, automatically this is getting produced in the background. An element that you wouldn't be surprised to hear is that we are talking with RPA about how submissions can be made from the Land app directly back to RPA. Technically, the Land app can do all of that right now, but obviously it's just a little bit of work that needs to be done with the RPA on that front. So, but you can see how that would be totally possible. Same for countryside stewardship. The difference here with countryside stewardship is that because there's a payment rate associated with each feature, it also produces you the total value, so how much you're going to get paid for the features that you're mapping out. And this is really useful when it comes to doing sort of scenario planning and looking at alternative options, and what might be the best route to take, because you can duplicate any of these projects and create multiple scenarios. So if I duplicate the project that Dan created, and I could say, well, actually, no, I've kind of been thinking, well, maybe we're going to put in, I don't know, let's split this field and we're going to put something in here. Well, let's see next year for sake of argument. So we can start to build up these multiple scenarios, working remotely, getting a really clear understanding of what we're going to do before we decide to submit that and then go and implement it. And again, the same is true for the UK Hab, is that produces the table view behind the scenes. The other thing in terms of how that data is used, we also have this estate report function here. And what this does, it produces a really simple, quick breakdown of the holding. So you could see this as essentially the baseline appraisal. So exactly how's the land being used? So how much land is in non-agricultural of the BPS area, et cetera, et cetera. Same for countryside stewardship and same for UK Hab. So again, it's just a really nice, quick, concise summary. And we're talking with the Sustainable Food Trust, who are building up this harmonized metrics about how this data could pre-populate their harmonized metrics framework that could be a bolt-on to the Land app, which would allow you to do your full sustainability assessments. They're also running an ELMS trial at the moment. So just to show you that from doing the mapping, you can actually start to use this information in a whole variety of different ways. And as Dan said, it's really hard to imagine that ELMS could ever be a paper-based system. Yes, so hopefully you can see the value of that. I'm just going to add a few more things in, because obviously, I'm on the farm, I'm the one walking around, I'm the one that's capturing photos as I am on the ground. So I'm just going to show you how you upload photos as well. So just create a photos project. I'm going to click on 3 vertical dots and upload photos. And I'm just going to come through and see if I can find some particularly relevant ones. Maybe some of our SSI. There's one, let's just add a few more in. And I know that Sean Page is on the call, and Sean, you will know exactly where all these spots are. So let me just put on a few more. So we'll get one with some sheep in. And actually, I'll tell you what, I'll also add another one in, which is put in a drone photo of the farm yard. So you can see how the software can also actually start to support and facilitate sort of more planning applications. So here we go. I'll show you what it looks like when you click on it. So there's the georeference photo. Click on here. There we are. And there's a photo from a drone which automatically captures the point at where the photo was taken, and we can just simply upload that into here, and this can support, in this case, maybe support a planning application. Let's just jump into a few more so you can get a sense of what the farm looks like. So there's a few sheep. This was actually, I think, last year, so those are no longer around. And down on the SSI as well. There we go. So again, all of these photos, by the fact that I've just uploaded them, they are all available for Dan to view sort of as an advisor. So again, Dan wouldn't have to necessarily walk around on the farm. Obviously can't just at the moment, but the information can still get shared and could obviously start to complement a countryside stewardship report. So that's the other point I wanted to make. That essentially, for all intents and purposes, are the main points that we wanted to sort of share today, but it might just be worth just quickly showing you a couple of other functions just so you can visualize how the software is being used in sort of different areas. So we also make available sort of for more whole estate planning, all of the land registry data for England and Wales as well. So what we went through just there, all of this was the RPA workflow, but we also provide access to all of the land registry data as well. So that's, you can simply click the button at the top there, left click on the title, and these two are the farm, and then click Save Boundary and Finish. If I just turn off all the other projects here, there we go, get rid of turn off that as well. So here's the land registry data for the holdings. So this can also be obviously incredibly valuable context. You know, if you're advising, or just a simple, just a sort of bit of a health check on the farm, just to check, because I know, for example, down here, we actually have an unregistered parcel of land here. So this can be a really useful thing just to verify. And again, you know, all this information is getting shared with Dan as well. So, so yeah, I just wanted to show you that. And then the other last thing, probably before what I plan to do is to add you all as collaborators as we go into Q&A session, is we also have some other data sets like provisional agricultural land classification. And what we're looking to do with these sort of more contextual overlay data sets is actually start to provide new market opportunities. So those who attended the webinar yesterday, which I know quite a few of you did, which was on landscape scale demand for ecosystem services, both Tom Curtis from 3 Keel and Sam Sinclair from Biodiversify talked about how these how the demand for ecosystem services can be aggregated at a landscape level. So looking at sort of how do supermarkets, or I don't know, airlines or big business or food retailers, whatever, how can they basically make money available at a landscape level that can get distributed back down to farmers? And one of the elements that we're looking to build in is to make those new market opportunities available, so that as a farmer, you can see these new natural capital funding streams that are available to you. And again, we're looking to make all of that information available in the Land app, just as we have here. And this could also be sort of the nature recovery networks as well, just to make sure that you've got full context. So if you're doing a whole estate plan, looking at designing across a facilitation fund, that you're designing to meet the demand that's already been basically allocated. So that's that. And I know a lot of you will have seen this map already. Hopefully it's come through. Yes, it has. We also have started producing a map with a lot of the facilitators. I'm sure most of you have already contributed to this, but just to quickly show you for those who haven't, I actually presented this yesterday on the webinar, but I turn off the lens boundaries. So what we're looking to do is really work with the facilitators to build up this picture of where these facilitated farm groups are, because it helps us work out, you know, where the spaces are where there isn't yet a facilitated farm group, and to open up the opportunity for doing that. Of course, it opens up ideas about collaboration between multiple groups, and that synergy starts to become very obvious, and also just give farmers more context as to where they sit within the wider ecosystem. And this piece I just mentioned about the lens boundaries, the landscape enterprise network, which essentially is this where the demand is getting aggregated for paying for ecosystem services. The idea is where these overlap. So this one actually overlaps with where Dan is in Frag Southwest. This is where we hope to make available these funding opportunities to you, the facilitation funds. So the more of this information we capture as to where the facilitated farm groups are, the more we can become a matchmaker between you guys as the supply and the demand, like the landscape enterprise networks. And the recording of yesterday's webinar I'm just going to set up over the weekend, and it'll be available for everyone next week. So for those who didn't see it, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean by how that money will flow down to these facilitated farm groups. So that's everything from me. I think I've covered all the points I needed to cover. So I think we can open up to a Q&A session now. I don't know if Jenny Phelps is on the line just yet, but yeah.
Not sure if she is.
No, she's not.
Tim, we've had a couple of questions. I've started fielding them as best I can. I think so. There was a couple of questions about duplicating your project, and once it's duplicated, do any changes carry over? Currently not. So if you create your basic payment, it's really quite good when you're doing your baseline mapping, is to get everything on the ground first from the basic payments perspective, and then build on top of that. Because and it's the same for when you rename fields as well. Currently, that's not going to be carried over. I know I've spoke to the Land app developers a couple of times. It would really help things, but just the technical aspect of it is really quite difficult. So at the moment, currently not. So if you do, for example, make a basic payment scheme, then duplicate to a countryside stewardship, and then back in that basic payment, add a scrubland or add a track, that will not carry over to the countryside stewardship you've just made. But then if you reduplicate it again, you will carry that over. So it's about being a little bit organized. So get your field names in early, get your polygons also aligned up under that basic payment, and then build off that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, so that's the logical steps that need to be gone through. And actually, it might be an important and relevant point to make. I try and articulate this in the best way possible, but so everything we're doing and everything we're building, obviously we're doing it under our own steam, so we have our own developers, and it's great. Unfortunately, just at the moment, we aren't funded by DEFRA or government at all. So for a lot of the work that we're looking to undertake, we're actually doing it from our own budget, which is obviously fine, but it's sometimes the reason where we can't emphasize quite as much as we would like some of these different elements. So just to be really transparent with you guys, we're obviously trying to build a really healthy, successful business that really has a positive impact on a huge area. But just so you know, we're always juggling a lot of different things, and you can see we're trying to just help as much as we possibly can. But just so you know, yeah, we're not funded by DEFRA, we're not funded by BEIS or Treasury or anyone, or Ordnance Survey. This is entirely being done under our own steam. So yeah, I'm always really grateful if people can just be mindful of that. You know, we are here to be as collaborative as we possibly can, but as we are all know, there's obviously just a certain pragmatism that's needed in terms of delivery. So we try and help as much as we can, but if it does get a bit frustrating because we haven't delivered something for a while, it's purely because we are doing it under our own steam. So essentially, the more we can spread the word, the more people we can get on, essentially the more revenue we can start generating as a company. It's the only way that we can flow money back into the product and build it to meet your needs. So just to set the scene, because sometimes I don't do that and people have an expectation that we're being funded by DEFRA, and it's not the case. So yeah, just to be clear for everyone.
Yeah. We had a question from Barney about are the RPA accepting countryside stewardship and fur option maps generated by the Land app? So I'm currently working on 3 stewardships using the Land app. Last year we submitted the maps, so the printout maps from the Land app with our application, but in terms of filling out the annex form and drawing a fur map, we still did that the old-fashioned way. Land app currently doesn't have fur, but the generation of the table view, I'm not sure, Tim, did you show the export to Excel? I think
yes,
you did, yeah.
Yeah. So let me,
using that as a template for your annex form. It's just worth remembering on the current annex form for stewardship, remember you've got multiple drop down boxes. So for Land app to be able to fill out all of those multiple drop down boxes is near impossible at the moment. So you still have to do a bit of transferring, but like we've shown, they work out the areas for you, they work out the options, they work out the payment rates. So
yeah, totally. And just to reiterate, we would love to build all of this stuff in. So if anyone is particularly close with DEFRA, you know, if we could get budget from DEFRA, which I think, you know, is fairly justifiable, all of this stuff we could make happen very quickly. Like we've got the technical capabilities, the infrastructure's there. It's just that we need, we would love to speed it all up. So yeah, I would love to work with you guys on that as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, unless anyone wants to ask any questions live, I'm just going through the questions that keep coming through the chat, if that's okay. There's a couple of good questions about the woodland options, Alison. So under the UK habitat mapping, all of those options pretty much be coded off. So like rides, glades, you can just split. You can split your woodland polygons. So there's loads of options under the woodland habitat codes, but you just got to use the different manipulation functions on Land app. So if you're building a ride, you can draw a line and buffer that line either side, for example, or buffer it just one side. You can draw it however you want. If you've got an open glade, for example, you could. It's just however you manipulate the data, and the templates are there. And the same under countryside stewardship, there are a number of woodland options as well. Hopefully that answers your question. They're uploading normal photos, Tim, if they're not georeferenced.
Yeah, unfortunately, they do have to be georeferenced. You can't just upload photos and then allocate them to a position. You can add georeferencing to digital photos using some online tools. But yeah, but most photos, hopefully people are taking will probably be with mobile phones. Appreciate there might be some that are old photos or maybe not using a phone, but basically anything that's caught with a mobile phone should have a georeference stamp on it and should therefore be able to be uploaded straight into the software.
Can I and add on to that? I think that's a really, really powerful tool, and the fact that you can't add georeferences, from my point of view, is actually quite a bonus. Because if we're going to go down the route of self-assessment and uploading photos for how you're achieving without them being, because you can't manipulate a georeference photo, so we're being true with ourselves and being true with each other. So uploading a photo we know that was taken there, and it's been timestamped with a date. So if we're, for example, asking for a self-assessment on your species-rich grassland, and I know some of the payment by results trials that are happening with the Wildlife Trust, for example, they're getting landowners and farmers to go and count the number of species, at certain target species, and take a photo of them. So that type of thing, if we can build our ELMS trial or ELMS around that trust, georeference photos are going to play a really massive role in that, because like Tim's saying, from here we can share these photos, but we know they've been taken in that exact spot. So although it would be nice to upload loads of photos, I think the fact that georeference really adds a bit of robustness to the whole thing. Tim, Alison wants to know if she can add some of her facilitation groups to your larger facilitation map.
Oh yeah.
Send you shape files.
Well, actually, probably easier, Alison. What I'll do is I'll add you as a collaborator to the map, which is actually how all of those those boundaries are uploaded, and you can just upload the boundaries yourself. Happy to help, of course, but yeah, I can just add you as a collaborator, give you edit permission, and you can just upload the boundaries if you want.
Yeah. Vance is just asked about generating reports. Tim, are you okay to? I'm not sure if you demonstrated the estate report function.
Yeah, let me just quickly do that. I quickly touched on it. So here up at the top is this estate report function. So basically the way that this is produced is it's from having completed the BPS, CSS and UK HAB. And once that's done and you're happy with it, then you can click this estate report function, and hey presto, all of the information flows straight through into here in a really nice summarized format. At the moment, you can't export this into Excel, but it's something we're working on actually. So you'll be able to just export that. And what will be fun is obviously be able to put some charts and graphs and things like that in. But essentially, that's how you create a summary, a baseline summary, which we're hoping acts as a really valuable reference when it comes to natural capital payments. So you can see change over time. You can see how the land condition has changed. So day one, gap analysis, this is what we're going to get paid to deliver. Okay, then 2 years down the line or whatever it might be, there's the new status and the data has tracked the change. So this estate report would be basically the method to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a second part of that question, which Vance, I can hopefully answer. I was hoping Jenny would be on the call, but I've just looked and she's still not arrived. But the ecosystem service function has been a massive part of our ELMS trial. So working with the UK habitat map, the mapping classification, they've also got an additional bit of information called secondary codes. I'm not going to go too into it, but we can send out some information further, which is basically assigning each of these primary habitats, so your cereal cropland or your woodland, which is broadleaf, however, but there's another line of data called secondary code, which basically just provides context to how that land is being managed, where it originated from. So that may be the cultivation technique, or that may be the number of cattle you're stocking it with, and the type of grazing you're doing. And what we're doing within the trial, it's not currently on the land app yet, but we are building up a picture of our trial farmers through a questionnaire. So we're asking them about their land management strategy, how they're managing their woodland, their hedgerow rotations, for example. All of those are stored as a secondary code, which is just another line of data, a couple of digits, which represent that. So when we're looking in the wider picture of the landscape, we not only have the primary habitats on the ground, but we also, and I know there's a load of research coming out of Rothamsted and CEH, the Centre of Ecology and Hydrology, who are our partners in the ELMS trial. They're trying to attribute some more function to each of those codes. So say, for example, as a farmer, they submit that they've got a C1C, which is that cereal cropland in the south of this map. They've got the C1C, but one farm is using a ploughing organic system. The other one is using min-till conventional. They're starting to build up a data in terms of the natural capital each of those are providing. One of them may be better for biodiversity because they're not spraying and there's no pesticides, for example. Or the other one's using min-till, which may be better for carbon capture. So it's a bit out of FWAG's realm, if I'm honest, but CEH and Rothamsted are really working hard to try and get ecosystem service function derived from simple questionnaires that we ask farmers. And it's going to be a long process, and we're building up the data set, but I think a simple mechanism like this for a front facing and all the complexity behind is really where ELMS is going, and it's looking really powerful. So just by submitting the primary habitat and how that habitat's being looked after gives us a real good idea of how you as a landowner, as a farm or as a group are providing natural capital and public benefit to the whole landscape. So Ross asked whether we can do a webinar for, in layman's terms, for farmer clusters. Tim, I think we've mentioned this before, and yes, we really need to just sit down and properly, step by step. It is worth mentioning though that Ross, Tim and his team have spent many an hour getting those guidance videos up and running. And for a lot of the things we've shown you today, they've already in quite nice layman terms, but I think a whole cluster, a whole webinar dedicated to layman's terms, how a farmer goes from point A to point B, is definitely going to be a valuable thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's one thing Dan and I have been talking about is how do we put on essentially a training program which could break a lot of these components down into really sort of bite-sized chunks, because a lot of them have a lot of context underneath them, like UKHAB, or indeed how to design a really effective countryside stewardship that's in keeping and aligned to the landscape level plan. So we are also considering creating essentially a training program which we could then make available to everyone, because I think we really feel like it's the time now is to really help upskill people, give them the tools and the data they need, so people feel confident going into ELMS. I think that's really what we would love to do over the next few months. Isn't that right, Dan?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it is a journey, and there is an inevitable technological shift, and we really want to take everyone along with us. And a tool like this, with a bit of guidance, people can do a lot. We did just release, if anyone's interested, our phase 1 report, which is our first 6 months of our ELMS trial, mainly built around the land app and the local knowledge that we're trying to capture using a tool like this. But there's some of the outcomes and the results just show the importance, especially for people new to this, having just a little bit of guidance. We, just for a bit of background, just for 30 seconds, we had, within our trial, we had 2 groups. We had one called the phase 1, and we had the phase 1 control group. And it was that phase 1 received all the guidance from myself and the rest of the FWAG team and Tim at Land App. And they were basically given all the guidance they needed from a local advisor who understood the land, but also had the technical skills to use this. And on average, I think each one of our phase 1 groups received 1.7 hours, so an hour 45 minutes of land app training, and they managed to complete what I've shown you today. We had a phase 1 control group, which was 30 farmers, received no advisor help, only a little document, a PDF, trying to get on with it. And out of the 30, we only had 7 that completed the guidance. So it's just, it's a journey that is obvious. If we're going to do this, and we see the huge power, we need access to advisors, we need access to guidance, and a training program like you've just mentioned would be really, really important in that type of journey as well. But I can send around the report if anyone's interested. It's a bit of a hefty document. I think it's about 40 odd pages, but it's got some real nice insight about where we are currently, and also the future proposals, and how we see and envisage the future of land management to progress forward if we're all going to be on this journey together.
Brilliant.
Phase 1, yeah. So Vance, I'll put a link. I'll share a link. Tim, are we going to do a follow-up email with contact details and some extra?
Yeah, we will do. Yeah, we could put something together, maybe send it across beginning of next week or something, Dan.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can send that out, Vance. Great. Unless anyone's got any burning questions, I'm pretty satisfied. We're very much happy to help. I've seen a couple of questions about GIS transfer. We've got from our ELMS quite a big data set that we're still waiting to transfer over to the land app. It's definitely got the capabilities. There's just a couple of nitty gritty things we need to align, but yeah, please get in touch if you've already got a GIS data set, because a lot of it, if it's already mapped, it is pretty transferable.
Brilliant. Bruce, is there anything more that you want to raise or mention, or before we finish up?
I don't think so. Thanks, Neil. Thank you both for your time. I think, as I mentioned last time, I'm new to the land app as well, so I found this incredibly useful. I think it's a case of giving it a go, as you said, and it's really great these things are recorded to refer back to at various stages. So I think if we could sort of send everyone who joined this call kind of the links that we've mentioned and the contact details, that'd be great. Just one thing actually from a Southern Facilitators group, we at our last meeting talked about producing a land app project to map our group boundaries, but having seen the national one, it makes much more sense to be part of that national picture. So Tim, after this, I'll perhaps pick up with you. We can kind of transfer what we've got. It's really good to get more groups, because there are a lot more groups out there, aren't there, to add to that bigger map. So hopefully we can help out doing that fairly soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Great, thanks very much. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, guys. Well, if there's any more burning questions, do ask now. Otherwise, yeah, we're very happy to have follow-up conversations via email or whatever. Any more questions? No? Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and we'll get all that information across to you. If anyone does, would like another call, another webinar, again, just do let us know, because we're very keen to try and schedule something over the next few weeks. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts and feedback on this and how we can make it available to more people. So brilliant. Okay,
great. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for sorting that out, Bruce. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.